morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Renew Podcast, where we are helping you learn to reclaim your life without losing your edge. I am your host, Kristen Andre, and back in the hot seat with me again this week, we have the fantastic Mrs. Shelby Triick.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Did you have a good holiday?
I did. It was amazing.
Awesome. So we are talking today, because we were following up. We talked about some energy. We talked about time with family. I'm still working on my holiday. But we're talking about letting things go.
Let it go. Let it go.
Did you see that movie? Or you just know the song?
Watch it monthly.
Are you serious?
I'm not even kidding. Frozen and Frozen 2, yeah.
You don't have kids.
It's funny. I watch more cartoons than probably people with children.
That is funny.
The Disney Channel is my favorite.
I'm not going to judge because I'm not one to judge other people. But that's funny.
Because there's even like this little Olaf short. We're going to go off on a
let's not go on the
Frozen tangent.
But the Frozen tangent. So the theme of today is let it go, not necessarily Frozen, but I'm still cracking up on the fact that you listened to Frozen. I like it. I think I've seen both of them. I know all the songs. We sing them a lot at our house. But the theme of today being letting things go, not the movie, but things. Because I'm going to guess for a lot of you guys listening, there were some things that might have transpired over the last few weeks, last couple years, that we just need to let go.
Yeah.
That are stewing and making us do things and say things and think things that we just need to get those thunks out of our head.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that? I know you have, so I'm asking you a loaded question here.
Yeah. I try to develop an amnesia around it, though.
But sometimes you get these things where you're like, I just can't freaking let it go.
Yeah.
What does that to you?
I don't. It really is strange. I can't think of one thing, but I know there are things, and like they'll become the loop in your head that you can't. So silly maybe, but the things that I can't let go are like, I say something stupid, and then I wonder how it landed, and then I wake up at 3:00 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my God. But then like the other person or people or whatever, they're not thinking about it.
No.
But then I'm on the hamster wheel. Like, should I have said this differently? Should I have done that? Should I have whatever?
But you realize that once it comes out of your mouth, and you and I both have that gift of things coming out of our mouth, maybe a little bit differently than we intended. Mm-hmm. Or maybe exactly like we intended and they just didn't land right.
Spicy.
But we have that gift. Let's call it a gift.
It's a gift.
But once it comes out, we can't pull it back.
No,
because we both tried.
Can't unhear it.
So why do you ruminate on it?
I think I ruminate on it because ultimately, sometimes I'm very sarcastic. That's shocking. I'm sarcastic. I have a dark sense of humor. Like the reel that's playing in my head is hilarious, and then you say it, and you're like, fork. Like, and then I've got to explain it, and then or sometimes you say things you don't even think or like whatever, and then you see the other person's eyes, and you're like, huh.
But I think it's good that you pick up on the nonverbal clues of their eyes popping out of their head.
So it's a good thing, but sometimes I think I can focus on it too much. Sometimes I think I can care too much depending on the person because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm of color. I like cuss words.
She does like cuss words. I will attest to that.
It's funny. I wasn't raised that way, but like I'm just a sailor, and no offense to sailors, but so I like a well-timed,
F-bomb. She does.
Yeah, that's my favorite word.
It is.
And I say things off color, and then you see your audience, and you're like.
But part of this, Shelby, is understanding your audience.
Yeah, no, and I do pretty good until I don't. I'm just saying.
But
I do pretty good until I don't.
But I think that's with all of us, like things that we need to, we can't take it back. So I think it's once things come out, we just have to let it go, and then you just manage. Yeah. You manage the expectations at that point.
Yeah.
But you'll ruminate on things like, oh, should I have said this or how did it land? But you said this a second ago, it's because you care.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. If you didn't care, and I think that's what people see about you and see about a lot of people that, things come out. And I've said this with one of my kids is, she'll say things and we're all like, well, and she's like, well, that's not what I meant. Yeah. But the heart's there, it just came out differently than she had intended. And I think that happens with so many people. And I always, people get offended I try not to offend a lot of people. I don't think I offend too many, maybe some.
I don't think I
But I always
ever
tell people, look
intend
at
to
the
offend somebody, but I
yeah.
tend to be outspoken and say what I think, and some of those things are controversial, I guess.
That's refreshing to me.
Wow.
I tend to toe the line and not try to tick people off. But what I always typically tell people when they get, when they come to me and they're frustrated because somebody said something or they said something the wrong way, it's like, what was the intent behind it?
Yeah.
And one of the things, I'll give you an example. When I first started in finance, and this is, everybody's so PC right now and everything. When I started in the financial field more than 20 years ago, there weren't a lot of women. There still aren't a lot of women. But I was one of the younger females in the firm. And, when I first started, people were like, oh, who do you work for? And I'm like, me? Because they just weren't used to seeing a young female, doing well at a firm. And so, but it was funny. All of the older gentlemen would call me gal. They're like, oh, this gal, or she's the gal that... And a lot of the people would get ticked off. They're like, I can't believe that's so derogatory. And I'm like, they don't mean it derogatory. None of them were at all. And so what I always took from that is look at the intent behind it. They were not at all. These were people my grandfather's age.
I look for the context.
I look for the context, look for the intent behind it. And I feel like so many times these days we're, and why we can't let things go is we get our feathers ruffled over things that people didn't mean to ruffle. Like if you really sit back and look at someone's intent. Now, if they're being a jerk, then yes, get the feathers up, fight back. But for a lot of things that we get bent out of shape and that people get bent out of shape, if we truly look at the person's intent behind it, the intent is it's not ill. There's no ill will there.
Yeah.
But I feel like so many people, and I'm not going to blame this on any one generation because I'm trying not to tick y'all off and be sensitive, but I feel like people get their big girl pants and big boy pants in a wad way easier today than we used to. People
if
get
you
offended.
want to be offended, you can be.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and this
all
is the whole
time.
thing
Look,
that started.
I don't look to be offended. So
no, I don't either. And this is the whole thing that started. We're not really talking about cancel culture, but it has to do with it because letting things go. The inability to let things go, I feel, is leading a lot to cancel culture. Do I like all of the lyrics and a lot of the songs that people want to cancel? No, I don't. I really don't. I don't get them. I don't understand them. I can't say them without blushing. I just don't get it.
Okay, but let's talk about the one-way street that is the conversation you're talking about. They want to cancel certain songs, but then the other
nothing
songs
else
that are popular, and I'm like,
right,
like really?
Yeah. So it's like everybody. Look at the intention behind it. I don't like a lot of those songs. I don't listen to them.
Yeah.
How about that? Problem solved. But I'm letting
and move on.
But the thing is, I'm letting it go, and that's the thing is, some people can't let it go. And I've had a lot of people, get truly bent out of shape over things. And like, first of all, that has nothing to do with you, your life, your business, your children, your family. Nothing. Why expend so much energy? But there are things that people can't let go. And I'm not talking about basic freedoms or anything like that. I'm talking about differences of opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got to start, I feel like if people really took a step back and somehow started to look at where people were coming from and why people think the way they do and what in their history or their background made them show up. But I don't feel like people do it. They just hold on to things and they can't let things go because
instead of sitting at a table, they're standing on each side of a canyon screaming on the other side.
Correct.
They're not,
in
our last episode we were talking about Thanksgiving and talking about holidays and talking about breaking bread and being together and, at the end of the day, we all have a lot more in common than we don't. But
you think
we're
so?
allowing the
I do
differences to define the conversations, and it's frustrating. I mean, that's what I feel like I have to try and let go. Yeah. It's like, golly, golly.
But
we sound like a
golly. A character, a cartoon character. But we do that. You make a good point. The things we can't let go of. What's really interesting to me is, let's think about it for a minute. The things that we have trouble letting go of are the negatives. Mm-hmm. We have no problem dropping the positives. Mm-hmm. Somebody could be an amazing person in your life for years, decades. And lately, and I've seen this happen more lately, I was younger, in my 20s, 30s, I didn't notice it. Maybe it happened, I didn't notice it. But lately, I've seen people destroy lifelong relationships over one little thing they couldn't let go.
Well,
that in the grand
bully
scheme of
pulpit.
things didn't matter.
The grand scream of
Scream?
things. Did you hear what
You're
you just
screaming.
said?
I
The
know.
grand
I'm
scream
so
of things.
flustered. I'm flabbergasted
Yeah.
here. I'm getting the vapors. But in the grand scheme of things, a lot of what people can't let go of don't matter.
Well, because what they can't let go of is bending people to their will. I mean, they
Ooh,
ultimately
Shelby Triick. I like that.
Like they ultimately want to reform, reframe, out of whatever fear that they're living with, someone else's decisions and choices. And until you realize, and I mean, again, like I've said in other episodes, like I'm working on all these things myself.
Sure.
But, until we realize that fully all we have control over is our own reaction and our own thing, like we've got to, let go of the outcome.
Yep.
I mean, that's something that I've worked on for the last couple of years. Like, let go of the outcome. It happens. I can't really, since it happens in the middle of sleep is why I say I can't really help the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
But, the things that like just germinate in my head. But that is usually
Yeah.
because somewhere, somehow I think that I have hurt somebody. Even if I haven't, I'm just like worried that I
Right.
did. But then it's not really necessarily something I'm going to go back to them and be like, did I?
But I think you can, but you will go back because you've come to me as like,
I
did this
will.
land wrong? Did this,
Yeah.
not
Or do I
necessarily
do
with
this
me.
a lot?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can be, my sense of humor can lean towards punchy. I don't want to say it's negative, but like I have a biting sense of humor, and sometimes you do it too much, and then you
Yeah.
realize, well, maybe that it's becoming hurtful. Like the person knows me, they know I think I'm funny.
Yeah.
But after you do it for a while, it's like maybe
But I
that's
think
not
part of
funny
that
anymore.
is, there's two things. There's understanding you and the impact you're having on yourself,
Yeah.
if it does cause you to have the hamster wheel, but understanding the impact that we have on others.
Yeah.
And, letting things go, part of it has to do with ourselves and the stuff we can control. So
Yeah.
I feel like if we're looking at controlling the controllables, then we've got to take an honest look and hold the mirror up to ourselves and say, okay, what could I do different in this situation? If it has to do with letting go or not being able to let go of things that other people have done, then we have to, I feel like first try to understand where the person's coming from.
Yeah.
I'm not at all saying agree with where the person's coming from, but being able to have a responsible dialogue. And I feel like with a lot of times that's where people get hung up is they are fighting from each side of the
because
canyon.
they're not
no one's
having
a dialogue.
conversations, they're having tellings.
Correct.
Like,
oh, I like that.
Like, I just came up with it just now. Ta-da. But, if you're having
Yep.
a dialogue, you're curious, you're asking questions, you want to understand where the person's coming from. You're not accusing them of of something. Like, you're in so many of the conversations are just a telling.
Yes.
Telling you why I think the way I think and why you should think exactly the way I do.
Right.
And it's all said just like that.
Yes.
And you're like, two fingers
And
flying in the air is how I respond to that.
That turns people off.
Well, yeah.
You don't
just look at my energy as I'm saying
I
that.
know.
'cause
You're like
I'm
all shriveled up and
'cause I'm
everything.
like, I just want to.
But it puts people on guard. I
Yeah.
feel like, people are guarded and, despite, and I say this all the time on the show, I purposefully don't talk, I don't talk a lot of politics. I'm, very faith-based person, but I don't talk a lot of religion or politics purposefully because I understand and respect the fact that people come from different backgrounds and different beliefs. And even in our friend group, we don't agree on every. I mean, we're about as politically diverse as we can get.
Yeah.
We are probably very, very diverse in terms of ethnicities and backgrounds and our viewpoints on pretty much everything. But what's interesting is we never have disagreements on it. We may not agree, but we respect and understand why I believe the way I do or you believe the way we do. And you and I aren't always aligned on politics or things like that as well, but it's understanding. It's easy to let things go and let things bounce off of you. I like the Superman shield. Let things just hit the shield and bounce off when you understand where the other person is coming from, like why they make the decisions they do, what their beliefs are, how they were raised. All these things factor in.
But
and we
sometimes-
lose that sometimes.
But sometimes, there is that. And I think seeking to do that with people that you're really close to is a good thing. But I also think that we can just allow for people to allow for knowing, like what I think I said it in the last episode, that people are doing the best with what they have where they are. Like they're making the best choices for them. They're not trying to harm me. If they are and I'm close to them, then maybe that's a conversation. Like, do you realize you're having this impact? And then they can say, well, no, and I don't care that I am. That's just the way it is. I mean, I hope that one of my closest friends wouldn't say that, but I mean, it's a dialogue. But sometimes it's not about changing the person's behavior. It's like, do you see how that's landing?
Right.
And sometimes that's the question I'll ask you. I'm like, so I've been doing this. Like, what are you seeing when I do this? And you're like, I don't think that's a problem. And I'm like, okay.
And if it is, I tell you.
But yeah, you do.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
I'm the mirror, but that's the
it.
thing. But in order to be able to let things go, we have to, and I'm not saying, some things you just need to deflect, because some people are going to be negative Nellies and you just have to just ignore them.
And I get my feelings hurt more often than I should, because I let opinions of people that don't matter affect me.
I have gotten better with that. And this goes back to, which you guys are going to get tired of hearing me, those of you guys that tune in a lot, tired of hearing me say this. I categorize my people. And I've said this, and I will say it again, and it's just so important. I have grasp, grow, and group. Grasp is my inner circle. It is a very small group. It is less than 10 people in my whole entire universe. Those are the people whose opinions matter. Those are the people, Shelby is in that group. Those are the people that I'm calling at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep and going, hey, here's what happened today, and am I right or wrong? And they will flat out tell me when I'm right, and they will absolutely tell me when I'm wrong. But they know me and my heart and where I'm coming from. So they're able to give me that feedback. My next group, grow, are the people that I'm building my relationships with. They'll probably either move up or down in my little world, but I'm intentionally trying to get to know them better, to understand them. I'm trying to help them understand me. That's what the foundation is a good relationship is. I highly, encourage building relationships with people that you want to have more of in your life. Those people I listen to. I'm not calling them at 2 a.m., but I listen to them. The rest of them is group. Those are people like, I like you, you're in my world, but at the end of the day, I'm not calling you to ask you what I should do, and I'm not getting as offended. So like if my inner circle is saying, Kristen, you are being wackadoodle on this, I am 1,000,000% listening to them, because they know me and they know my heart. And if I'm not in alignment with who I am, they're going to call me out on it really quickly. And you guys have done that before, when things happen where they're like, you're being a little unreasonable here. And on the flip side, when I'm being, I feel I'm being unreasonable, they're like, no, you're not. You're doing good.
Yeah.
So it's so important to have that. And but I feel like so many people, the reason they can't let things go is they're letting the group, they're letting the masses affect how they feel and how they show up.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's I personally don't think that's the right thing to do, because that's not why we're here. You're not being yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself, and the right people will love the real you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. And not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody loves me.
Yeah.
Lord knows.
Yeah, just same.
But I think if what happens is, where cancel culture came about is everybody gets offended about everything. And it's, God loved Cardi B in her song, but it's not my favorite. It's not on my playlist. But Cardi, I love you, girl, and I love the fact you own 1,000,000%.
I just love the intolerant tolerance. That's my favorite.
Right, that's what people were trying to cancel her and cancel.
You have to be tolerant, but I'm not.
What's the Christmas song that we were canceling?
Baby, It's Cold Outside.
Baby, It's Cold Outside. If you don't like Baby, It's Cold Outside, don't listen to Baby, It's Cold Outside.
But Eazy-E is still out there.
Yeah, I know. See, and
one of my favorites, but still saying, like, check yourselves, y'all.
Old school. But there's such hypocrisy in every, and again, this is about letting things go, not cancel. We got to do one on cancel culture, but I'm not going to be as nice then, because some of y'all are crazy. Because here's the thing: if you're offended by it, don't listen to it, don't watch it, don't buy it, don't read it,
don't assume the worst in people.
Right. Like you have to look at where people's backgrounds are from and what resonates with them. And if they're not hurting you personally, here's the thing. Are my children going to get it? Not that my age. Let's pretend I had little children. If I had little children, are they going to get offended and learn some words on the radio that they probably should? Yes. So you know what? As a responsible parent, I'm going to do? I'm going to turn the channel.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start a movement to cancel everybody that's out there. Because you know what? I have the ability to let things go and realize good on her for making an album that a lot of people like.
Yeah. Totally.
But it's, how do you, that's just, I let things go by first assessing whether or not it's my circle and whether or not it's something I need to be paying attention to. Is it a hill to die on? If not, I try to let it go. Can I ruminate about things that, yeah, for sure. But that's when I have to, my phone a friend button again. Yeah. Because things happen. Things come up. I had things a few weeks ago come up, from my past, just things that were just gut-wrenching and hurtful. Not intentional, but hurtful. And I was like, I called you. I called a couple people like, it's one of the girl cry things,
Yeah.
But you cry and you process and you move on.
Yeah.
But you can't live in the wallow in the things forever. How do you let go of things?
I feel like
I call my friends. I'm a phone friend.
Yeah, I call my friends. I text. I decompress. I watch a TV show. I do whatever I'm going to do to change. Because we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I think for me, letting go is shifting my energy.
Yep.
And if I need to stay in it and work through whatever the problem is or whatever it is with a person, then I will try to grind it out.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's shifting my energy and focusing on something else. And I think I have gotten pretty good at that. But I think what I need to still continue to work on is that I'm pretty good at rising to the occasion.
Okay.
You know, like
that's good, though.
Something that will
rising to the good occasion or the bad occasion. Hold
both.
on, before I say that.
Right. I was like, no, hold up, Kristen. I think both, and some of it's just stupid stuff online. Like I succumb to the peanut gallery in the comment section,
no.
you know, where I'm not even involved in the conversation, but I'll read the comments because it's funny until it's not. And then you're like worried about all of humanity. And then you're like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, why am I even at like elevated
You're
to this?
doomsdaying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. Like, so I can
You could doomsday with
I can
the
get
best
there
of 'em.
quick. Like I remember, I think it was last Thanksgiving. My sister-in-law got into a conversation, and it was related to politics, and we tend to be kind of middle left, middle right, and you know stuff. And I thought she was much further one way, and she thought I was much further the other way. And I was like, well, the only like real things we talk about are the polarizing topics.
Right.
So in those topics, I probably sound like a wackadoodle on one side, and on those topics, she probably sounds like a wackadoodle on the other. But really, at our cores, we're pretty moderate. And that was just an example of like, I can rise to the conversational occasion of like the hot button issues. And then it made me think, I'm like, oh my gosh, there are probably a lot of people that think and then that's where I get on the hamster wheel. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to reframe this for everybody. Like, holy crap.
Well, but this is where the thing, and for some people, politics is a hill to die on. That's their thing. And this is where understanding where it is. And people were the last election season was the first one I did not tell anybody who I voted for. Because I was tired of you crazy people asking me who I was voting for is what it is. And it was on both sides. My kids assume, you didn't ask, my kids assume one thing, my friends assume one thing, my kids swear they know who I voted for. They don't know who I voted for.
I personally, and I hope I'm not taking us down a tangent or a road, but like I personally feel like people are more than their vote.
I do too.
But there are a lot of people that don't feel that way.
Yep.
And that I am working on letting that go.
See, she's sliding out of her chair. But it's for some people that is a big thing. And at the end of the day, I do think we're more than a vote, which is why I consciously didn't tell anybody who was voting for it. But it's funny, even in not doing so, the point is with things that we need to let go is letting go of the trivial things, because there are so many more things that we're aligned on than what we agree. We're not ruminating and unable to let the good stuff go. We let that go quickly. What we're challenged with as a society, and especially as a country in the United States, is we're challenged with letting go of the negative, letting go of the disagreements, letting go where we don't align with somebody. And that it fuels the fire. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, with the election last year, and I didn't say anything, what was interesting is the comments either on the show or like in other social media, and people I know, they're like, well, I know who you voted for, and I know who you voted for. And I had as many like, well, I know you voted for Biden, as I know you voted for Trump. It was split down the middle. So my Republican friends are like, oh, I know you voted for Trump. My Democrat friends are like, oh, I know you voted for Biden. I was like, okay.
You're like, I voted for Queen Latifah.
And you know what's funny? You know what's funny in that whole, guess how many people I offended?
Zero.
So I just wasn't going to fan the flames.
Well, when you
of the
let
fire.
other people fill the cup and determine the conversation.
They can determine the conversation how they want. Because for me, it's not that, I hugely believe that people should vote. I think people should have an opinion, and I respect the people that have opinions that are far one side or the other. Totally fine. For me, it was not my hill to die on. I didn't want to push relationships or anything like that, because my goal in what I do professionally is to unite people and elevate people and help them grow. And I didn't see the ability to do that for myself being divisive. And because for me, I see merits in both sides.
Well, I prefer to look at people for how they are every day, the energy that they put into their passion projects, where they're putting, using their time for good. And that says more to me, because I mean, I can imagine comments, talking about politics and you're more than your vote, but in that your vote says a lot about you because it's determining it, it's a value proposition. But
Right.
to me, the value proposition is how you show up every day.
Yeah.
And so, but it's been difficult. I mean,
But it made it easier for me to let things go
Yeah.
because I wasn't being attacked during
Yeah.
that. Only by people going, well, who'd you vote for? And who'd you vote for? And they just assume, and I let them assume. I mean, to this day, nobody knows who I vote. I'm sure the election people do. I don't know. I live in Georgia, so I probably voted 8 times. I might have voted 4 on each
don't
side.
start that.
So
Let it go. Let it
never
go.
know. Right?
Can't
But
hold
it's
it back anymore.
Shelby's voice is crying. That is Shelby singing, not me, since we know I have a grand fear of singing in a public forum. But I feel like the first step in letting things go, let it go. First thing letting stuff go is just figure out what's worth the fight. And
Yeah.
some things are. You mess with my kids, there will be fight. There will be no letting go. You've been through that with me.
You
before
mess with my
people-
friends, and
Yeah.
I will bow up
Yes.
terribly.
Yes.
Sometimes to the point where whatever's going on with my friend will get fixed, but then I've made it a mess.
But that's true. That we all have things, and I'm not saying there are things you can't let go. But I've taken stances, very heavy stances, especially in defense of my kids. You remember that a few years ago, where I had a massive fallout from it. We've repaired that now, with people that were involved with it. But it was a big deal. But that for me was something that I fight. That's my kids and my probably my closest friends and my kids and my family are. That's just
assumption. I mean, part of letting go too. I mean, I don't know. Well, maybe this isn't letting go, but people like to make assumptions and completely disregard boundaries, and when those two things really will light.
Well, and I think part of letting go is setting healthy boundaries. It's like, hey, I'm letting this go, or what have you, but I'm not going to allow this behavior, this whatever to happen again.
That's a very good point.
And I'm a big boundaries person.
You teach people how to treat you.
Yeah, I say that all the time. It's 100% true. And so, when we're talking about letting things go, that's an excellent point. It doesn't mean that you're going to allow things to happen that shouldn't happen. You're letting it go, meaning I am not going to continue to punish this person or myself, which is usually who we're punishing. We're not going to continue to punish myself to do this, but I'm going to set boundaries so it doesn't happen again. Because you do teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't realize that, but anything that we don't stand up for, whatever we tolerate, we're kind of allowing, right? So, set healthy boundaries is very different from, ruminating or not letting things go.
Yeah.
Just because I let something go doesn't mean I'm going to allow it to happen again.
Yeah.
What has been the hardest thing for you to have to let go of? That's a tough one, I know.
To let go.
Personal, what's harder, personal or professional?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I think it depends on how it impacts me. It's funny. Like I developed some kind of amnesia, like where I don't think about it anymore. I think
That's good, though.
I think when I was younger, I used to hold grudges a lot more, and that was a form of not letting go. But I mean, there are probably things that repeat themselves and come up in conversation. So those are the things I'm not letting go of, but I can't think of them right now.
The grudges is kind of that's the biggest example of not letting things go is a grudge that we hold for a long time. And, when we're holding a grudge, the old saying goes that, you're really just poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing that. And I was good at grudges. Because we had, and I've been open with this on the show before. I had now we're at 6 years, 15 to 6 years ago, 6-7 years ago, I had a breakup, let's call it, not my ex-husband. My ex-husband's a great man, but I had a breakup, and it was traumatic, and it was awful, and it was embarrassing. It was just bad. It was a cheating situation, all that. And I could hold a grudge with the best of them. And I was mad at him. I was mad at her. I was mad at everybody that remotely associated with that condoned that and that did that. I was mad. And it took forever for me to get past that because I was holding that grudge and I couldn't let it go. Viscerally sick, everything, anytime I saw them. But, fast forward 6 years, and it probably took me 3-4 years to get past that. But I think it was because I wasn't able to let it go. And the reason I wasn't able to let it go is because I wasn't owning everything. I wasn't owning that. I mean, if I look back now, thank God I'm not with, I mean, we were not a good bet. He is not a good person. She is not a good person. We were not a good match. And I was so deserving of more, right? But back then you don't see that. When you're in the thick of it, you can't really see that, which is why the friends holding the mirror to go. And I had one of my guy friends after that said that. And he's like, you're too good for him. You're too good for this. And which is what all your friends say to you. But, you know, the examples he gave and everything just made so much sense. But sometimes we don't listen. We just, we're dug in. Because I was dug into the fact that he's a bad person and I need to be still mad. Once I was able to switch to, he's a bad person and that has nothing to do with me. Thank goodness he's not still in my life. I had to make that switch. And I think a lot of people, you know, that was the personal example. A lot of my clients have had that in business partnerships as well.
You know what just made me think of something, and I maybe this falls in line with letting go, but I think sometimes with people who have hurt me or who have behaved badly in the past, like whether it be work or personal, and they go through personal journeys of, you know, bettering themselves and doing better and being better. Sometimes I have a hard time letting go of the person they were. Like they have legitimately put in the work. And they consistently show up better. But I'm still like bracing myself for.
I think it's old patterns. It's old patterns. Like I've let go of the hurt because honestly at this point, I don't think as people they've changed and turned into miraculous people yet. Maybe it'll come. I don't know. But for me, I literally have turned it now, and this was, again, probably about 2-3 years ago that I made this switch mentally as to I feel truly blessed that I'm no longer in that relationship because, you know, just because for whatever reasons, for all the things I've learned since then, you know, but so I can look back and say, man, the anger's gone. And and there was, y'all know, there was a lot of anger. The anger's gone. It's really gone. It's like, okay, here's what I'm taking. I'm taking from this what I deserve. I'm taking from this, you know, that I'm blessed it didn't turn out, you know, because if we're going to quote Garth Brooks, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers, right? So like all the things that we think we want and that we pray for and all these things, some of the ones that don't happen that break our hearts at the time were some of our best prayers, our best unanswered prayers, being protected from things that, you know, we couldn't have withstand.
Or couldn't have even seen the writing on the wall.
You couldn't have seen the writing on the wall. And I think God sees the writing on the wall. It's like, you know, and let's give some props to God because, you know, I think he looks at me occasionally and go, girl, you couldn't handle that. So I'm gonna just protect you. Put that hedge of protection. I wish the hedge of protection wasn't so big at sometimes, but it needs to be. But I think that's a lot of the things is we are protected from so much that, you know, that's part of what helps me let go of things too. And I still get it, but it you know, that's when I call people and have to process it. You know, you or Lisa or somebody where I'm like, okay, walk me through what I'm not seeing here. And that's usually what my question is. Here's what happened. What am I missing? You know, and everybody else has great perspective if they know you well.
Yeah, I think probably the hardest thing for me to let go of, and it's, I don't want to admit it, hardest thing for me to let go of sometimes is allowing for people not to be who I think they should be.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our expectations of people are very realistic to us, but they're not realistic to them.
No.
And we want people to grow, and especially, you know, the work I do, that's what I'm doing is personal and professional development. It's, you know, I see such potential.
Yeah.
And what I've learned over the years, you know, with the work I've done, you know, in my own career and with therapists and counselors and people I've worked with and development folks is you have to meet the person halfway. My expectations for someone can't be greater than theirs. Just like theirs for me can't be greater than my own. Is we've got to meet people where they are and figure out, okay, you know, how can we both grow as a person, which I think is so important in couples and in things like that, is you have to grow together.
I have such high expectations for people.
I do too.
Which I tend to believe is a good thing.
Yes.
But sometimes like what you just said, my expectations can exceed what they're able to do, give, provide, be, whatever it is. And I sometimes have trouble letting go of my version and vision of their potential or who they are now. And it's changed.
You've got to own, and some people change. Like I have people in my life now that were delinquents years ago that are phenomenal individuals now. And I have the opposite. I have some that were phenomenal individuals who are now delinquents. And we've got to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
You know, personally, professionally, even financially. I always talk about personal, professional, financial because those three things affect us all so much. We have to meet people where they are, just as we would expect people to meet us where we are. Because I have this conversation a lot. I've had this conversation with my kids. You guys are judging me from 8 years ago. 8 years ago, I was going through a divorce. Let's not judge anybody the year they go through a divorce. You know, I think you've got to look at where somebody is right now. And sometimes our expectations are higher than theirs, and sometimes it's the opposite.
Well, and I'm viewing this as a positive comment. I'm having to learn how to lower my expectations because recently in a conversation it was, these people, you don't get upset if they don't reach out, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, like why would I get upset if they don't reach out? And then I'm like, oh, and so I'm like, it's. Sometimes there's people that I'm like, well, I wish they would participate more with me or be more in my life. And I'm like, no, I've just got to lower my expectations so that I'm happy with what they do.
So control the controllables. So the one thing we can control in every situation is ourselves.
And let go that they're not the people I thought that I wanted them to be or whatever it is in my life.
If you've had that conversation with them, meaning if you've gone to them and says, you're a really important part of my life, I would love to see you more, I'd love to be able to get together more, I'd love to grow our relationship, can we start doing X?
Yeah.
If you haven't had that conversation, then it's on you.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't lower my expectations on anybody unless I've controlled the controllables I can control.
Yeah.
And I...
Well, and I don't see lowering expectations as like giving up.
No.
I just mean it's like, maybe I should say reset my bar, reset the expectation level.
The expectations on what they provide to you.
Yeah.
You can keep providing to them. And, I tease my girls all the time. I'm like, I gave you the gift of high expectations because I see I have 3 daughters. I see the incredible people they are. I see what they can do. I see what they can do for this world, for themselves, for all their friends, everything. They don't always see that. My job as their mom is to help them see that.
Yeah.
My expectation, I hope as a parent, is always way higher than theirs.
Yeah.
If it's not, we're in trouble because I'm their parent. So same thing with my clients. I see them way up here. Now, are they going to hit it? Some of them are going to blow past it and I'm going to up it again. You've got to meet people where they are. And everybody kind of looks at things differently. Like I have a couple of my private clients right now that they crush everything we set out. So we just keep moving it up. And they're so fun because they get so excited.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of clients where I feel like I'm dragging along behind me because that type doesn't work really well with me.
Yeah.
But you've got to set it, and then once you set the expectations and you're clear in your communication, then you let go
of the outcome. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is it's not the expectation that's letting us down and causing us all this can't let it go. It's the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they don't hit a certain thing that we expected them to do, and that might be the expectation, but we've got to take a step back and figure out what's worth fighting. And, some people are worth fighting. I wish more people would fight for people. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people in their circle. All right, Miss Shelby. I like this.
Fun as always.
I know. It's always fun as always. But I think, for everybody, letting things go. I will not sing for you as we wrap up.
I will not sing for you again.
You can play your rendition of Let It Go from Frozen from the soundtrack. But it's really critical as we continue to move into this holiday season, as we step out of the pandemic and start getting out and seeing people and everything, is to let go of some of the things. There have been a crazy couple of years. This has been a crazy, crazy couple of years for all of us. And I just want to make sure that we're all extending some grace and helping people, helping meet people where we are or where they are, and making sure that we are letting go of things that truly we don't have any control over, because that is how you will continue to build the relationships that are important to you. That is how you will rebuild some of the relationships you may have lost. But it all goes to letting go of the things that we can't control, showing some grace, and continuing to move forward. So Shelby Triick, as always, thank you for being with us. And we will see you guys next Tuesday on another edition of Renew.